curious, how often do you think you're aware of the experience in your body? Of paying attention to the sensations that you feel inside? Maybe you're wondering, why would I want to spend time paying attention to my body when there's all this other stuff to pay attention to? Or maybe you think, yeah, that could probably be helpful, but I don't have the time and energy to do more and spend more in my already full and busy life. Well, welcome to Soma'ing, the video series where we explore how and why cultivating the capacity to pay attention to our bodies actually makes a difference in everything that matters to us, and provides you with practical tools that you can use in your life. I'm your host, Dr. Twyla Kowalenko, here in East Toronto, where I work as a movement facilitator, somatic educator, coach, community catalyzer, DJ, dancer, and mother. And I am passionate about what is known as somatics, or what I call Soma'ing. And don't let unknown jargon scare you away, because really all that means is anything that helps us cultivate the capacity and just pay attention to our bodies in our lives, anywhere and everywhere. So join me as I interview some people working in the area of Soma'ing, where they're sharing their stories of how being able to pay attention to their bodies has made a difference in what matters to them, and where they share hands-on practical tools that you can use in your life to make a difference in what matters to you and bring it to your personal life, your family, your communities, and the world. So welcome, Emmy Delea. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you. Emily and I have known each other for a number of years. I can't say exactly how long, but we've definitely danced together many times. I also had the opportunity to work with Emily in your teaching of the Eldoa method. And something I love about you, Emily, you're so passionate and expressive. There's such authenticity, such care, especially, the few times that I got to work with you as a teacher, like so much tuning in, sensitivity, honesty. And I know you do really deep, powerful work. And so I'm excited to have this opportunity to speak with you, and also for you to share with our audience a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and ways that being aware of our body can support us in our lives.
Well, I'm super happy to be here and excited. I love what I do. And that's why I get excited. And I knew from a very young age that I was here on this planet to help millions of people, which I realize sounds bizarre, but it's possible with the internet now. Who knows who we have when we're sharing our tools online?
Yeah.
Okay. So
do you want to share briefly a little bit about what you do? Just in a couple sentences.
I'm currently, COVID encouraged me to make a pivot, which has been really quite wonderful. I'm currently working as an online personal trainer, but I'm by no means a personal trainer that is common. I've done a lot of training and I've worked with individuals to learn about the fascial system. So I'm also a body worker. I'm what's called a fascial stretch therapist, and I've done mentorship in kinesis myofascial integration, which is also hands-on body work. So I'm not doing that currently because I'm doing everything online. So I have switched over to the personal training aspect, but because of my fascial knowledge, everything I do is to help people be in their bodies more. And what I mean by that is we mentioned this just as before we started the interview, we can be up in our head and not grounded and not present with the whole sense of ourselves. So I do exercises with my clients, but it's also about them tuning in and listening, and then learning how to interpret the information they get from their body, and then how to work with it in their everyday lives. Yeah.
Amazing. And so I imagine you have, a really unique perspective of the ways that this work can really make a difference in our lives. One of the main things I focus on in this series is to really explore how being aware of the experience in our bodies can make a difference in the things that matter to us. And so I imagine that not only have you had that experience in your own life, but you get to see with your clients, how this supports what matters to them.
It's amazing. It does. I've seen clients speak up at work, ask for a promotion. I've seen clients speak up in the household. I've seen clients, this one woman had social anxiety, and it disappeared over a year of training with me. And it was because she very slowly over time became more comfortable with herself, and people outside of her mattered less and less. So the anxiety being around strangers or environments that she was unfamiliar with, it still happens. Like what she'll do is she does pep talks to herself before going into a busy environment, but she's got it. And I'm not a therapist. Like, I'm not a cognitive therapist. I'm a body therapist, but it impacts our ability to reframe our lives and live our lives differently.
Yeah. I really resonate with the self-expressive part, as someone who was painfully shy as a child, to be able to be in my body and find my unique expression and embrace it is so incredible. And that's what I love. I love seeing and supporting in others.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, in your own life, what would you say would be one of the main areas, or an area in particular, that you've noticed how it's been positively influenced by your capacity to be aware of the experience in your body?
I'll first off say that I'm an empath, maybe times 10. I love the term clairsentient, and that term doesn't necessarily work with everyone, but what it means is that I feel my environment. So I feel everyone and everything. And so that has been quite uncomfortable for me at times. And it has resulted in challenges. However, what I have come to learn, because of finally listening to my body, for a long time, I didn't. When I was dating someone a few years ago, and the person, I had this pattern of dating people that didn't benefit me that much.
Okay.
This person was like that. And I started to experience a lot of pain in my body, like a lot of pain. And I didn't actually understand that it was me compromising myself to fit into this mold that this person wanted for me. It took quite some time, actually about 2 years, for me to link it. And then once I did that, once I had time away from this person and I noticed that I had less pain in my body, I started to really tune into it. And I would, if I noticed my upper back was getting tight, because I would actually get muscle, it would get to the point that I would have spasms. Because I was aware at this point now, my thoughts were impacting my physical body, I'd make a note of what am I thinking about? How am I compromising? I would do a little interview with myself and find out where I'm at. And then we talked about this earlier, ground, because I learned that I was very reactive, and I was a pleaser, and I was not feeling my feelings. So now And then I learned, slow down, tune in. And I didn't quite speak up at that time, but now I speak up honestly and lovingly to people when I'm compromising myself. I now know that I don't have to listen to someone talk about their pain if I don't have the personal bandwidth at the moment to be in that. And I didn't know that a few years ago. I thought I just had to be nice and sit quietly and listen. And now I understand. I can say, you know what? I actually use the term bandwidth. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the capacity at the moment to get into that topic. Perhaps another day, or perhaps if we go for a walk, because I've learned that if I'm walking, I can tolerate more. And I liken that to the reading I did in Peter Levine's book. I think that's the title, author, Waking the Tiger, and how somatically, if you're stressed, animals, they shake, like they finish the somatic experience. So walking, I can, if I'm talking to someone, I want to still listen, like I will move. Okay, and my close friends, see, look at me wiggling. My close friends, they get it, and I've explained it to them. So it's helped me so much. I'm being true to myself. I'm not compromising myself as often. I still catch myself, but also saying it out loud to people. I'm learning. I'm potentially educating the person, and they can do that themselves. Yeah, it's changed my life. It's changed my stress levels, everything.
I really hear a lot of taking responsibility and taking care, and how kind that can be, speaking from your experience, by being attuned to what your needs are and what you're feeling, then you're speaking from like an I statement. And it can still land sometimes for people in a if they hear, that you aren't okay to speak about something in that moment, and the capacity for you to speak, to say, I just can't do this right now. I love you. Maybe we can speak about another time. And there's less chance for the other person to then feel, for you to blame the other person and say, you're taking this from me, or anytime we're making about the other person. And so I hear such responsibility taking and being in charge of your own needs and boundaries and articulation of that, and modeling that, because I know I was not modeled that as well.
Neither was I. No boundaries in my household growing up. None. Boundaries is something that I've acquired and learned for myself as an adult. Yeah.
There was something I wanted to go back to when you had mentioned, this previous partner you were with, and noticing that you were having pain in your body. And so you were able to connect those two things, that the pain you were having was connected to that relationship. And that wouldn't be something that would be completely obvious. And so I wanted to unpack that a little bit, because what I sort of heard was, it took you noticing your body first. Oh, there's something painful right now. It's quite acute. And then asking yourself in that moment, what am I thinking? Like, what am I thinking about in this moment when the pain? So noticing the interconnections between your thoughts and your physical experience, I guess, as well as the connecting emotional experience before those. So that's sort of what I sensed. And I'd love you to share, is that sort of the process of how did you identify that it was, this relationship is actually leading to pain in my body?
I identified it through, as I mentioned earlier, when this individual went away. And then I realized, wow, I didn't, like, pain that I had, I was in constant pain, but it would fluctuate. Like, it wasn't like the pain wasn't a 10 out of 10, but I did have this ache in my body, and it started when him and I moved in together. And then it would get worse around different situations. So how I identified it mostly was when he went away. He went away on a business trip. And then I had that freedom and I noticed the difference in my body. But it also came from when I would be at work and have like separated from him physically and be really happy with my present moment, being with my clients. I would notice that a pain that I had in my body when I was with him would show up sometimes when I was with a client. And then I started to, that's when I started to create the correlation between like, what is that? And so I've gotten really detailed with it. I know that I feel shame in my lower back, and I feel unworthiness in my upper back. It tends to get into like a little rounding here. Compromise, me not feeling like I can speak up or be honest. I feel that in my traps. So it took time, but it was really him, this individual, me having time away, and then noticing that the pain would show up in other situations. Because for a while I thought it was just him, and then I realized no, it's my body talking to me constantly, and all I have to do is listen. And now I've made these correlations, and it'll still show up. I was at the coffee shop the other day, and I felt I felt like an inconvenience. That's what it was. I felt like I moved faster because there was someone behind me, and I got this pain in the base of my neck of I'm an inconvenience, and and I started to, and I'm like, oh, I know what that means. So now this is my physical practice, and I teach this to my clients. I'm gonna see. So what I do, and even in the coffee shop, so I stand with my feet wide anywhere, and I kind of pump my hands, palms down to the ground, and I say, okay, where am I? And I don't necessarily say that out loud. I often do, but I'm like, okay, but I always say, okay, out loud. Okay, okay. And it's a way of me grounding myself, because my head has a habit of going into these beliefs of, we'll just say, negativity. But now that I'm aware that the body gives me the cue of my thoughts, I now have this other action of me taking a wider stance, palms to the ground, and saying, okay, out loud. It's like a reset. I learned it through, I've read a lot of Mel Robbins stuff, and she has the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when we talk about, so if we're stressed, we're in our amygdala, our reptilian survival brain. I realize you know this, but not everyone knows this. So we tend to be there. If we're in a thought pattern that's negative or not serving us, we're there. Like when we're anxious, we're there. If we count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it shifts us to our prefrontal cortex, and then we can be logical again, because this isn't logic, this is survival. And so this, me going, okay, it's my version of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I snap out of my loop, and I'm able to gain perspective, calm myself down, and behave accordingly. And I'm always nice. I'm like, I'll even thank people, like in the coffee shop. I'm like, thank you for your patience. They're like, yeah, no problem. And in my head, I realized, oh, I really wasn't an inconvenience. But I now can ground myself, figure out what's actually happening, and adjust positively.
Yeah, and I resonate and agree with how important it can be to just to have the capacity to notice. And so this practicing of being aware. So this is, before I started recording this interview, we got on this call this morning, and I was still in this hurried mode. We'd had a late drop off at school. I was getting the tech set up, and I recognized, oh, I'm not grounded. And I love you sharing, how you practically ground yourself through your feet, pushing down with your hands. What I tend to do is feel what's supporting me. So right now I'm sitting on a chair. So I feel the sensation of the seat on my bum, the back of the chair on my back. And I just feel into that sensation, and all of my energy, my thoughts, there's just a a calming, a grounding, because I realized when we first connected, I was, my energy was really high, and it's much harder for me to be present here with you in this moment when my energy is really high. And so just a moment, what did we take, like 10 seconds or something to breathe, to do whatever we needed. And I did what I needed so that I could be here with you in this moment. And those, it does require practicing being aware. And then we might not need a lot of time, a couple of breaths worth to find a practice that works for us.
There's something I'd like to share that I learned on a podcast. I'm not too sure of the origin, but I learned it from Dr. Andrew Huberman, brilliant man. He talks about a physiological sigh. And so you do a double inhale. So what that does, it pulls in a little extra oxygen, and it's another way of doing a pattern interrupt. So if you have a thought pattern in your head that is high energy, anxious, whatever, just a couple of physiological sighs, it, like on a biochemistry, it also changes your biochemistry too. So that's an assistance. Yeah. So we have a lot available to us. And what you said, gaining awareness is key. And this is what I work with, if you don't mind me talking about how I apply this to my clients. So
sure, yeah.
Awesome. So in addition to me being this, I call myself a movement therapist rather than a personal trainer. However, most people resonate with the term personal trainer. So one of the things I have my clients do when they're working out, because some movements will make people anxious, or some positions will make people anxious. So I have them pause wherever they are, and I have them tune into where they feel the sensation in their body. And through conversation, might take a few weeks for them to figure out their method of grounding, but them using their own personal tool to create a grounding, calming feeling in the body so that they can continue going through. Sometimes it's a breathing exercise we're doing. Sometimes it's an exercise. I also do Pilates, which is very slow, and a lot of people don't want to slow down. And I consider myself a slow trainer, a slow movement therapist. So yeah, it's identifying, and then together, the clients and I give them examples of what I do, then they come up with their own coping mechanism, and they can apply it when they're with me, and then they end up applying it in real life.
And so in terms of them developing their, the way that works for them, do you help guide them, or how do they figure out what the technique is that works for them?
Most of them I give everyone a list of what I've done over the years, and everyone so far has picked one of my versions. So, I mean, they've of course adapted it to their own. I also do NLP with my clients, neuro-linguistic programming. And so I also help them create anchors. So an anchor being like they can pinch the inside of their hand. And so I'll do hypnosis with them and NLP techniques where they anchor in a sense of calm every time they do this. So they can be anywhere in a meeting and they can just squeeze this if that's what they end up choosing to do. And it gives a sense of calm because through repetition, we've told the brain this squeeze here, the term anchor, represents calm. So it's something that together my clients and I have installed in their nervous system, but it's a little discrete tool.
So when you were saying squeeze here, you were showing us this place on your hand. And I'm curious, was that a specific, was that spot important, or could I create an anchor with my earlobe or my elbow, or is there a reason why it's there, or could it be anywhere?
Anywhere. So this one in particular, I'm in between my thumb and my index finger. This is a point that can also relieve headaches. So the person that came to mind when I was telling the story, they have post-concussion syndrome, so they get a lot of headaches. So this is their chosen anchor, but an anchor could be, just crossing your arms and like having your hand on your elbow and just doing a little squeeze there. Or it can be putting in your earbuds. Let's say you're a jogger and you want to create an anchor for a feeling of vitality and drive and motivation, or like whatever it is that you want to link to your run. So we can anchor in putting in the earbuds. So every time you go for your run, you get that sense of whatever the person wants to create. Yeah, it can be anything. The mind is incredible. It's so cool.
I mean, we know that we make associations with things, and that's even how we can do memory work or all sorts of things. I mean, we're associative. So I love the practice of being intentional about the associations that we're creating. And I could imagine that would be, any sort of physical pattern that we do. So you named this one about putting earbuds and going for a run. And it could be, I have a situation in my life that I know stresses me, and I usually do electronic communication. And so preparing my body and having certain thoughts and practices that I do so that I can associate calm and grounding with communication, that, if I wasn't conscious or intentional around it, there would be a lot of automatic associations that tended to be negative and anxiety inducing. And so recognizing that and cultivating a different emotional, physical, mental pattern of movement. And it requires practice, right? It's not, we don't just do it once.
Correct.
It's the repetition, how we create these habits and new habitual patterns of movement and association.
And the repetition also leads to neuroplasticity. Like you end up changing your brain and how you feel about the task. And you can take it a step further. Again, listening to a podcast of Andrew Huberman, he talked about the role of dopamine in motivation and grit and moving forward. So if we do something like, let's say, your example, sitting down to do electronic communications, let's say you have your little anchor that you've created for yourself, your intentional practice to get you there. And then if we take it one step further, and no matter what the situation, in this case, doing your stuff, if you congratulate yourself, then you release dopamine, and then you feel even better. And when we release dopamine, we are even strengthening the ability to have that new neural pathway of sitting down to do electronic communications. Isn't that bad? Because if you congratulate yourself, you've just started to, it feels better because of the dopamine release. So slowly over time, with that repetition, you could love electronic communications. Like, yes, this is my way of reaching others. This is my way of making commitments to myself and my business. It can be awesome. It takes a little time though, but it can happen.
Yeah, I love that positive reinforcement, and especially this idea of acknowledging ourselves, because it doesn't tend to be something that most of us do have experienced doing or tend to do. So it's one of those things too that does require intention and practice. Yeah.
I really think mindfulness goes so far, and I have a dream. One of my dreams, and I was doing it a little bit before COVID started, and then we're not doing group things the way we used to. I was teaching workshops and teaching people how to become or to increase their sensitivity of their own body awareness. So it was a movement workshop, but I also encouraged people when they were feeling stuff in their body to tune into the emotion. And also, because of my movement background and the fascial education I have, teaching them some movement exercises they could do to open up that space. Because we have habitual behavior patterns, but we also have habitual movement patterns. And sometimes if we're going into a joint that's a little bit uncomfortable, our body doesn't want to endure pain. And that's legit. We don't want to have pain, but bumping up the edge of pain and just maybe backing off and being in a place of discomfort can be quite safe. And as long as one is aware, we can do really amazing things with a physical practice, with conscious breathing, with being in tune in the body. I'm convinced that we can be, we do need outside people, but I really believe we can be our own movement therapists. And it doesn't take a lot of work. I do it when I walk every day. I walk every day, and I'm aware of the position of my pelvis. And if I keep my tailbone heavier, how does that impact, my thoracic spine and my breastbone? Like, also use a, see?
Yeah.
We have so much available, but if we haven't been exposed to that level of awareness, we don't necessarily know that it's available. So my dream is to do, and I will begin to do it, I'm going to do it. So live, but also I realized, why not do it online? So I want to teach people to tune into themselves better, because that negates what I just said. Tune into themselves better and create release in the body and invite more vitality. Yeah.
I love that. And and when you sharing, how it can be helpful to have some discomfort. And I think it requires some sensitivity and awareness to know what discomfort is safe or unsafe for ourselves. And so, sorry, did you want to, I had a question, but it looked like you maybe wanted to respond to.
I was just agreeing. You're right. And that's one of the things I have to teach my clients, because some people are so adverse to pain. So like I am repeating myself, teaching them to back off, and then teaching them about that little back and forth and exploring discomfort so that they can be safe.
And I'm wondering, you shared, maybe we could finish with this. You shared you wanted to be able to share with more people a practice of cultivating more awareness in their body. And I imagine, you could probably have a full hour or multi-hour session around this. And could you, in a couple minutes, guide me and our audience through a simple practice of cultivating awareness in this moment for just a couple minutes?
Sure. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is, I teach this to everyone that I've ever been exposed to in the last few years. And it's super simple. So you interlace your hands and you're going to bring them out in front of you. So you're going to also try to pull your hands apart. I'm going to go sideways. Yeah, you're good. So you're going to try to pull your hands apart, but you're also reaching forward. So you're creating some traction in the traps. And then you can change the angle and feel it differently in the body. So find a spot that feels kind of yummy, where you're getting a good stretch. So we've got our hands interlaced. They're out, reaching out front. We're gently pulling them apart, but they're not actually going anywhere. So that creates a tautness, a stretch in the traps and upper back. And so when I teach people is now that you found this place where you found the stretch, closing the eyes. And some people visualize, some people that's not in their wheelhouse, but imagine that area that's a bit taut, softening and lengthening. And you can even lift your arms up a little bit, because sometimes having the arms in the same spot the whole time gets uncomfortable, because this is a little bit of work. And then, for the sake of time, I'm going to have you release your arms and then relax. So what I have worked, what that does for me in my heart, teaching that to people, a lot of us, if we even look at being on the computer, we're like this. I've learned for myself, I was like this for years, because I was running away from the feelings in my body and my emotions.
So can I just describing like, so like this, you mean with your head jutted forward? Is that how you described like this?
So I had this, and it's still in me, it's getting much better. Basically, I walked through the world with my chin out. And then if you can relate that, this makes sense to some people, but not all, head first. I was walking around with my head leading my life, impulsive thinking, reactive thinking, not being grounded. Like if you see someone walking like this, they don't look calm, like this being head out, chin out. That person does not look calm and relaxed. So this exercise that we just did, I encourage my clients to do that when they're sitting at their desk, taking a couple-minute break. It helps them tune in to their body. I encourage them to be mindful of their breath while they're there. And because of the how fascia is manipulated, by creating this tension with the hands and that active stretch, you're actually organizing the fascia and creating stretch and relief there. So it's subtle, and it's just something that is for the upper back, but that same principle can be applied throughout the entire body. Slightly different movements, but the idea of creating length and like stretch and rotation. So now I've got my left arm out and I'm pushing through the heel of the hand, like I would say my spider web dispenser in Aldoa. So I'm pushing my left hand forward. I've got my hands spread, and I can feel opening along my arm and down through my hands. And that opening can be quite uncomfortable, but if we close our eyes and we breathe into it, and because that uncomfortable gives a level of tension in the body or creates a level of tension, but relaxing into it enables us to soften and elongate. Yeah.
And I think there's something about the choice and intention of something that is somewhat uncomfortable, because then we know we can leave it, and discomfort brings our awareness to our body. I do like ice bathing, and I can't be anywhere but in the sensations in my body when I go in, in frozen water. Well, not frozen, but 0-degree water, because it's so intense. And so this is also what I noticed, when I was following what you were just leading, that it pulled my attention into my body more but we're doing it intentionally, and we know that we're doing it and we're intending safety, and we can stop at any time and kind of titrate for ourselves what level feels okay and safe. And sometimes we need a little bit more practice, or maybe even the support of someone like you or a practitioner to help us identify where those safe levels are, to make sure that we're not harming ourselves, that this is actually helping us bring more awareness and more mobility into our bodies.
Yep, I agree. So good.
So I think I understood that your practice is pretty full up right now. And I'm also curious for our audience if there's any way that they could find out more about the work, if they were interested and inspired by what you shared, especially these little practices. If they thought, wow, that sounds really cool, I would want somebody to lead me through some of those practices so I could practice them on my own. Is there a way that they could work with you or find the work you do, or other resources that you would direct them to?
Yes. So I have a website. It's not my favorite website, but you will get to know me there. It's called movegrowshine.com. And I'm going to start to release these sort of things. It was actually just a decision I made on Tuesday. I had a talk with my sister. I'm going to start to release videos like you just suggested on Facebook. So Move, Grow, Shine on Facebook. And we'll just start with those two. I'm also on Instagram, movement_mom. Yeah, that's where I display myself.
Amazing. Well, I love this new idea of sharing these and sharing this wisdom. And it really comes back to what you shared at the beginning about knowing that, I don't remember the exact way you put it, but that you would positively influence millions of lives through your work. And, you know, these various ways that, you know, that you do that, that offering this wisdom, sharing these nuggets to help more people be more aware and more present, more self-expressed, more harmonious. You could probably make a whole big long list of what those benefits would be.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yay, me too, me too. I love it because you know, I get to learn something new. I get to practice. I get to share your work. Feels really exciting. So thank you so much. I know you have a busy practice, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to have this interview and to share with all our listeners as well, and to make a difference in their lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.